G'day, Cam here. Let's get one thing sorted before we wander into witness interviewing with a notepad and a hero complex. The job is to gather information, not go fishing for a scalp. You are not there to diagnose, prosecute, therapize, or do that old chestnut of, "Righto, who stuffed this up then?" That mindset is how you turn an interview into a shutdown. The workbook is pretty blunt on this, and good on it. We are gathering information, not diagnosing. That line matters, because the second a witness thinks you've already decided what happened, they stop helping you understand the event and start helping themselves survive it. Totally human. Not evil, just human. I've seen it 100 times. Someone gets marched into a room while they're still rattled, maybe sore, maybe embarrassed, definitely wondering if their job's on the line. Interviewer comes in hot, asks loaded rubbish like, "Why didn't you follow the procedure?" Or, "Don't you agree it was unsafe?" Well, congratulations, detective. You've just contaminated the evidence with your own ego. And memory, by the way, is not a CCTV hard drive. The material is clear. Witness testimony is affected by perception, retention, and recall. Trauma, stress, elapsed time, distraction, contamination, collaboration, rationalization, all of that can bend what a person remembers or how they tell it. So if they're in shock or in pain or feeling cornered by a supervisor doing the crossed-arm death stare in the corner, you are not getting truth. You're getting a survival performance. That's why the do's and don'ts matter so much. Don't interview someone in shock or pain. Don't engage in power games. Don't criticize the witness. Don't take sides. There is no right or wrong in the interview room. There is only their unique perspective and how carefully you collect it. That anti-blame posture isn't being soft. It's being useful. Now, if all you want is the shallow version, driver failed to stop, operator error, worker didn't comply, then sure, blame is fast. It's also lazy as a dog in summer. A systems approach asks what happened, what conditions were present, what controls existed, what was missing, who was involved, what pressures were in play, and why the system made that outcome possible. Different game entirely. In ICAM, and even in 5 Whys done properly, we look beyond the sharp end. Human error, if you identify it, is not the finish line. It's the starting clue. The workbook says where human error is identified, the investigator must look beyond the error to find out why. Exactly. Otherwise, you're just writing fan fiction for managers. So if you're a supervisor or investigator, here's the practical reset. Your interview goal is a statement that's complete, relevant, and reliable enough to help build a timeline and understand contributing factors. Not a confession, not a gotcha moment, not a moral judgment. Facts first, systems next, blame nowhere in the room. That's how you get people talking. And more importantly, that's how you get closer to what really happened. Right, so how do you actually get decent evidence instead of a scrambled omelette of stress and hindsight? Start with the basics. Timing matters. Interview witnesses as soon as practical after the event. Not while they're in shock, not while they're crook, but soon enough that memory hasn't been chewed up by gossip, WhatsApp experts, and the bloke in smoko saying, "Nah, mate, this is what happened." That's contamination, and it's poison. Next, private setting. The workbook is crystal clear. Interview in private, reduce distractions. If you've got radios chirping, phones buzzing, 3 managers barging in, and a witness glancing at the door like they're waiting for sentencing, you've built a rubbish environment for recall. Sometimes taking them back to the scene can help, especially for non-traumatic events, because context can jog memory. But use your head and do not create another incident trying to be clever. Then, rapport. Introduce yourself. Explain your role and purpose. Tell them you'll be taking notes. Let them review the notes. Exchange contact details in case you need clarification later. Use plain language. No jargon, no abbreviations, no acronym soup. If you need an interpreter, make sure they're acceptable and don't take over the interview. Sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed how often obvious gets run over by urgency. Now, the questioning hierarchy. This is where interviews are won or wrecked. You start broad, then narrow, not the other way around. First, free recall. Can you tell me in your own words whatever you can remember about the incident? Then shut up. Let them talk. Don't interrupt because you've had a brilliant thought. You probably haven't. After that, use open questions. What happened after that? What can you tell me about the area? Tell me about the work you were doing. Open questions give you unrestricted detail in their own words. Then, active listening. Eye contact where culturally appropriate. Nodding, leaning in. Short verbal prompts like, okay, or I see. Not fake therapy voice, just proper attention. Then paraphrasing, this bit is gold. So what you're saying is, or let me make sure I've got this right. That checks your understanding and gives them a chance to correct you before your notes become fiction. After that, and only after that, use closed questions to pin down specifics already raised. Who was there? What time roughly? Which vehicle? Which permit? Fine. Leading questions? They've got a place, but use them with caution and only to clarify information already gained or test reaction to known information. The material says they can distort perception or memory. Too right. And loaded questions, the emotional ones, the accusatory ones, avoid them. How careless was he? Is not investigation. It's theatre for peanuts. And keep your notes careful. Record accurately. Summarize at the end. Ask if they've got anything else to add and whether they've got recommendations to prevent recurrence. Funny thing, when people feel heard instead of hunted, they often tell you the part the system has been missing for years. So you've done the interview properly. Beautiful. Now don't wreck it by dumping raw witness comments straight into conclusions. Interviews are a data source, not the whole investigation, one of several. You take what you've got and map it back into PEPO. People, environment, equipment, procedures, organisation. That's your discipline. If the witness tells you they were new to the task, that may sit under people. If they say visibility was poor, noise was high, or the ground was slippery, that's environment. If the alarm didn't work, the control was confusing, or the kit was damaged, equipment. If there was no JSA, the procedure was unclear, or the permit didn't match the job, procedures. And if they talk about supervision, planning, training, contractor arrangements, previous incidents, communication failures, resourcing, or tolerance of shortcuts, now you're into organisation. That matters because PEPO Mark 1 is your plan for what data sources you need, and PEPO Mark 2 is where you cross-check what you actually found and sort contributing from non-contributing facts. Not every fact is causal. Time of day might matter, or it might not. The worker's boot colour? Unless it was some truly cursed boot-related tragedy, probably not contributing. You've got to distinguish between facts that help explain the event and facts that are just background noise. The workbook says all data in PEPO Mark 2 must be facts supported by evidence for validation. That means witness info should be checked against documents, scene observations, photos, equipment condition, permits, training records, whatever else you've got. Over-reliance on witness recollection is risky. Useful? Absolutely. Sufficient on its own? Often no. And keep your language neutral. No loaded questions in the interview, and no loaded wording in your data capture either. Write what was said, what was observed, what was verified, not your spicy interpretation. If you ask, did the supervisor fail to control the job? You'll get one kind of answer. If you ask, what instructions were given and how was the work supervised? You'll get something you can actually use. Good interviewing feeds the rest of the process. It helps you build the timeline. It supports ICAM analysis by giving you facts to sort into actions, conditions, defenses, and organizational factors. It supports 5 whys by helping you identify the conditions and events worth asking why about. And it supports fair accountability because you're separating system understanding from any later review of conduct. That's important. Accountability, where needed, is a separate process after the investigation, not a dirty little shortcut during it. In other words, don't interrogate like a cop show, then analyze like a horoscope. Interview well, map carefully, validate your facts, and stay out of the blame ditch. Do that, and your investigation has a chance of producing learning instead of paperwork. And that, my friend, is the whole point. We'll keep chipping away at this in the next one.